Welcome to Be a Voice. This is Brick Carpenter on Usala Media. Thanks for joining me today. I'm very excited about today's show as I am able to sit here and talk with somebody that I have been a fan of for many years, and as time has evolved and gone on, I have gotten to know, and I'm very excited to be sitting here today with the one and only Nicole Michalik.
Ooh, look at you pronouncing my last name right.
Get rid of that C.
I love it. Yeah, the C's silent.
Did you like that? Were you waiting for me to say Michalik?
Yeah, and then I was going to be like, it's Michalik, the C's silent. But man, you know your stuff. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Nicole, this has been amazing because I have followed your journey for many years.
Thanks.
Because you are Philly.
I try, yeah.
You've been Philly.
Yeah.
And you are a known person here in Philly on many levels.
Kinda,
yeah. And, but before we get into all of that, one thing I do want to say is that one of the things I enjoy the most about you is the fact that you're just real.
Yeah. I like to be real. I think that authenticity is probably one of my best qualities. It's something that I really strive to be, but it's also something that I think a lot of people try to be authentic. I just am. And sometimes I think maybe sometimes I'm too real and authentic, but for me, it's just who I am. And it's just kind of how I was raised, right? Like my parents are the best. And I lost my dad a couple weeks ago, and that's still something that I'm dealing with. But that's how my parents are. Like they treated everyone the same, whether, whatever walk of life you were. And I grew up literally in the middle of nowhere in the Poconos. Everybody was white and Catholic, and my parents were very ahead of their time, And so, I don't know, authenticity just comes very natural to me. And in a lot of ways, I'm very blessed that it's like that.
I love that about you because you know when somebody is genuine.
Yeah.
You know that.
Totally.
You know when somebody's faking it.
Oh, and I think that sometimes gets me in trouble because I could see through bullshit really quick. Am I allowed to say that here?
Oh, you're allowed to say that. Okay, absolutely, good. Yeah.
You're good. And so it's hard for me because I genuinely like people. You know how there's some people, like you're an animal lover. There's some people that love animals more than people. I genuinely love people. Yeah. And, but it's hard because I really can see through people. And a lot of times people get defensive and they'll say, oh, what do you think you know me? And I'm like, I mean, like kinda. So, you know the movie Good Will Hunting when Matt Damon goes into the basement and solves the math problem? That's how I feel about people. Like usually when I meet somebody right away, I can tell the kind of person they are. It's just like, it's a gift in a lot of ways, but I don't mean to make people feel uncomfortable, but I was like, I could just read you.
So you're like an empath.
I think.
To an extent.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you can feel people, you can feel them out.
I could feel energy. Yes,
yeah.
100%. And sometimes my friends, especially shout out to my friend Colleen, one of my best friends, she'll be like, Nicole, that's crazy. And then like fast forward 2 years later, it'll come true. And I'm like, not that I want to say I told you so.
Well, in the morning, every morning, you get up and you get on social media.
Yeah.
And you do this segment that you call
Coffee Under the Covers.
Coffee Under the Covers. And I love it because one thing about that is, I love when you do slurp the coffee.
I do. Wait, you brought me coffee, so hold on.
Because it is Coffee Under the Covers.
Yeah.
And I brought you because you are a genuine person and because you have that sense of realness and you are so good,
sweet.
But you also have that edge to you that sometimes I'll tell somebody, yo, back up.
I do.
I got you a gift.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
And we're actually going to be twins with the gift.
Oh my God, so cute. I love presents. I'm a Leo. I love presents.
Well,
so cute. Hold on.
wait till you see your gift.
Oh my God.
You ready?
This is so cute.
Because of the simple fact, you got to have a nice day.
And then
when you drink it.
To the haters, this is how I feel about the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift haters. They ruined it for me. I just wanted to see two hot people in love. And they're like, I'm so sick of seeing them. And now we haven't seen anything in weeks. So you know what? Slurp.
There you go.
This is awesome. Thank you.
You're
Cheers.
welcome.
This is so cute.
You're welcome.
But yeah, I do have a spice to me. I definitely do have a spice because I like to keep it real. So things that, Here's the thing. I never like to make anybody feel bad. I never understood that, right? Like the internet could be a really awful place. Social media could be a really awful place. For me, I genuinely, and I feel blessed in all the ways, I'm a very happy person, right? And so I want people to feel love and accepted. And that's what I don't understand. There's so many people that are nasty. Just even regular people, how they comment on celebrities' Instagrams. And I've been very, very, very fortunate that majority of the people that I interact with have always been very wonderful, knock on wood. And, but there's a lot of really nasty people, and a lot of that comes from their own miserableness, right? But I never want anybody to feel unloved, unwanted, unaccepted. That's something that like again, it goes back to how I was raised, right? Where everybody's welcome, everybody's loved, everybody's wanted. And so I do get mad. The things that makes me mad is when people aren't nice. That's kind of what makes me pissed off. Yeah.
Well, because you want to know why. Like, what
Yes.
makes you not be nice? Like, what is that reason that you can't be nice from the gate?
Yeah.
You know?
And I also kind of back to what we just said, like, I like depth. So when somebody is in it mean or they do something that doesn't make sense, I want to know why. You know, the joke is always like, I don't want to go to a bar and be like, hey, how you doing? I would be like, how was your childhood? What's your relationship like with your mother? Because I want to get to the root of who someone is. That's how you find out. And a lot of times it is like, I think a lot of stuff goes back to people's insecurity. And if I do ever go back to school, I always say that if I end up getting my master's, I will do my thesis on self-confidence, because I think it's the driving force behind everything people do, and why some people have it, why some people don't, how some people get it, how you lose it. I find it fascinating. And then there's a whole like men versus women, that whole thing too. But at the same time, a lot of times people are insecure, and so then they project that onto other people.
Absolutely. It's that reflection. It's
Totally.
taking
Yes.
that insecurity about themselves and trying to make other people feel shitty.
100%.
And it sucks because I see those people. I know those people.
Yeah.
And I want to go up and tell those people.
Yeah.
But eventually they'll get it in their end, in the end somewhere. So,
Yeah.
But, I didn't even tell, my listeners who the hell you are.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's cool.
We go
Don't be
off.
sorry. We got so excited. We had the coffee mug. We got the, everything going on. But, I followed you and your journey for quite some time.
Yeah.
Since I started knowing you back in the Q102 days.
Yeah.
But you have been a local in radio media for the last how many years?
Well, I mean, I came to Drexel for college, then I interned. And so, but I've been full-time on the radio. Well, I should say I started part-time all the way at FM 97 in Lancaster in 2006. So I started full-time as Nick the Web Chick on Q102 in 2010. So a lot of people know me as Nick the Web Chick on Q102. And we were kind of like the first radio station in the country, really, that kind of synchronized social media and gossip and radio. And it was so fun because it was such a cool time where it was like Bieber and Selena and Demi Lovato and One Direction and 5 Seconds of Summer and Taylor Swift and Ariana Grande. Like, it was pop culture heaven at the time, right? Ed Sheeran, Shawn Mendes. It was awesome. And I was there until 2018. So I was Nick the Web Chick on Q102, and then I did mornings, and it was Phillies 106, and then it was My 106, and then it was Mix 106, and then they flipped it to Real 106.1. And so I was the director of social media for the cluster. I did mornings on Mix/Real. I did middays, but I was with Logan first, and then I was with Chio. Chio was a staple in the market for a really long time. And then, like I said, I was Nick the Web Chick on Q102, and then I also was on B104 in Allentown for Lehigh Valley listeners.
Were you really?
I voice track. So what I would do is I record it in Philly, then it would air, but I was from the area, so I knew all the what was going on and stuff.
Right.
So in November 2018, they flipped Real to the Breeze, and they got rid of the whole air staff. So there were 6 of us that got let go.
There was a lot of turmoil then.
It was a lot of turmoil. And it was interesting, though, talking about like life and pivoting. And I loved being Nick the Web Chick, but no one really said web anymore, right? Even like chick, like it was starting to be dated. And I kept saying to myself, like, what's next, right? And then even when I love doing mornings on Mix 106, but the powers that be, I'm just going to say it, were idiots. And they flipped it to Real 106.1, which was a dumb decision. And I did middays, and it was just, the concept was to do like kind of throwback hip hop, but for like, but they didn't really know who the audience was. I used to say like, you know, we would be playing like Ja Rule and Busta, and I'm like, or is the target audience a 40-year-old white woman from Ambler who like danced to these songs at Bloomsburg University in a frat house in 2000? Or is it like a 50-year-old black guy that grew up with this music in North Philly? Like, who's the target audience? And like, they couldn't really answer that. And the station literally lasted a year. So anyway, when I was there in that year, I remember being like, I don't want to, like, I need something different. I need something else. And I just wasn't sure what that was. I didn't want to leave Philly because as you kind of opened this podcast, that I love Philly. And I'm not even from here. I'm from the Poconos. But I was always...
We're from a similar area.
You're from the Lehigh Valley. Yeah. And so I'm from right near Jim Thorpe, a really small town called Summit Hill. It's so small that we don't even have traffic lights. And so, but I was obsessed with entertainment from when I was a little kid. I wanted to go to school in the city. I went to Drexel and I just like fell in love with Philly. And so I didn't really want to leave Philly, but I'm like, what am I going to do? And so and it's very common in radio for stations to flip formats, for people to have turnover. It's very similar to sports, where when a new head coach comes in, I had an opportunity to go to Boston and Baltimore, and I just was like, it just didn't fit. And then an old coworker reached out to me about going to 92.5 XTU to do country, and I never in a million years thought about doing country. Like, I listened to old school country in like grade school when it was like Shania Twain and Faith Hill, but I hadn't listened to country in years. Right. But weirdly enough, I kind of started listening to Maren Morris and Casey Musgraves and Dan and Shay and Thomas Rhett, and I was like, you know what? Like, I want to do afternoons, and country was just really starting to be more mainstream. It was such a huge opportunity, and I was like, why not? Like, let's see what happens. And it's been the best thing that ever happened to me. It's so fun. Country is the hottest format right now. And it's been cool because country, it still is its own niche, but in a lot of ways, over the last year and a half, it's so mainstream, and you have these mega artists now that are crossing over, and it's hilarious because there's 3 huge artists. There's Morgan Wallen, Luke Combs, and Jelly Roll, who are on all the top 40 and Hot AC stations. And I just think it's hilarious. Like, I was driving here, and I thought I had on XTU, and I looked at the radio, and it was Q102, and they're playing Jelly Roll because he's going to Jingle Ball. And I'm like, and I texted my boss, Raz. I'm like, I thought I was listening to us. You know, and the cool thing about radio in Philly is that we are all very friendly with each other. And you know, Bex, who does afternoons now on Q102, I text her, I'm like, lay off Morgan Wallen. She's like, but we need him, right? And kind of how I talked about when I was at Q102, how it was this amazing time in pop culture. Top 40 is having a really hard time now. The music cycle's just different, and that's a whole other conversation. But for country, it's awesome. It's just like the hottest format, and it's just been so fun. And the artists love radio. And XTU is a mega station. To kind of put it in perspective, there's no country station in New York City. So like from Boston to really DC, there is a country station in Baltimore. Like, we have a huge radius. So like when there's concerts and stuff, like for instance, Luke Combs is going to be at MetLife. Like, we did the announcement. We did the ticket giveaways.
That's sick.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I've been very blessed that I've been able to be on Philly radio a really long time. And I never expected to be in country, but it's so funny, like the app Time Hop that shows different stuff. Like, right. There's a couple things that will pop up from like 10 or 11 years ago that will be like, I listened to 5 songs in a row at 92.5 XTU. Who am I? And then there was another one. It's like, is there such thing as a liberal cowgirl? If so, I am one. And like weird stuff. And I was like, I made this, talk about manifesting. Like, I made awesome. This happen. Yeah.
That's so cool. How long were you on Q102 as Nick the Web Chick?
10 years. Well, technically I was like Nicole when I was only part-time, but then when I was officially Nick the Web Chick, it was from 2010 to almost 9 years. But I was really at Q102 because I started as an intern. So I was really at Q102 for like 10, 11 years.
Did you start as one of the promo?
Yeah, I started as an intern, and then I was on the promo crew. Yeah.
It's so cool to see people that are in radio and in the broadcasting aspect that start with the promo crew.
Yeah.
It's a tight group too.
Oh, yeah.
You have lifelong friends with that.
100%. Yeah. You know? I mean, my best friend, Joe, I mean, we literally met as interns, you know, and now he's a vice president for Live Nation. He did like the marketing promotion route, and I did like the on-air route. But I mean, still, like, I have a ton of friends that I still keep in touch with on the regular that we all met when we were on the promo crew together.
I think it's cool that they gave you a persona once you became Nick the Web Chick. You know,
Yeah,
you were
well,
Nicole.
It was interesting because so I was Nicole on Mix. And so when my boss, shout out to Tim, he actually runs 3 radio stations in Philly now. So it's fun. We met when we were at iHeart, and then he moved to New York and then Portland, and now he oversees the Odyssey station. So I won't break down too much radio. But anyway, he's back in the Philly area, which is awesome. But he had this whole idea that what we were going to do is we were going to marry on air and online and social media. And this was in 2010. So like he was ahead of the curve. And he was like, we need a fun name that people are going to remember. And so we just kind of, and a friend of mine came up with it, and she was like, what about Nick the Web Chick? And it just like stuck. So it was actually kind of weird though, because it was Logan and Nicole in the morning on Mix, but I was Nick the Web Chick on Q, but so many people knew me as Nick the Web Chick. So that's why my social media is Nicole is Nick, because people still call me Nick, even though like, and it also, I think, is really weird. Like a lot of radio people they have full names, right? Mm-hmm. But because I started as Nicole and then I was Nick the Web Chick, I never used my last name. So I should have been like Nicole Wells or like something, but I just everybody kind of knows me as Nicole. And then they're like, what's your last name? Mahalik, Michalik. So I never came up with a fake radio last name. Most radio people have fake last names, but I never did, because like, people know me as, so that's why my social media is Nicole is Nick. So people still call me Nick, and then they know that I'm Nicole, and it's like, I'm both.
And that makes so much sense to me now, because I actually every once in a while I was like, I wonder what that means, Nicole is Nick. And I never really put 2 and 2 together on that.
And I thought about changing to just Nicole Mahalik, but I do think that people have a hard time spelling my last name. And Nicole is Nick is just easier to remember.
See, and Mahalik for me, I know because of the area we're from, there are Mahaliks. It's the name, and that's
it's a regional thing.
Gets to be. So you went to Drexel.
Yep.
We're gonna peel some layers back there. Went to Drexel.
Yep.
When you went to Drexel, what was your major? What did you major
Communications.
in? Communications.
Yeah. I mean, I was very, very, very fortunate. Well, I say it twofold. Like from the time I was 3, I would like perform Twas the Night Before Christmas in like July, right? Like I was always a ham. I was president of my student council. I did the morning announcements. Like, I was that kid.
Okay.
But I always knew what I wanted. And I always say like, is it good to know what you want and have to fight and claw and scratch for it? Or is it better to not know what you want and be happy with what you find? And I think it's your personality, but I just always knew I wanted this so bad. And it took a long time. I mean, I went to Drexel, I was an intern, and I mean, Drexel fortunately has a really cool co-op program where you work for 6 months, go to school for 6 months. So, I mean, I grinded. And it's so interesting looking back, it didn't seem like a grind, because I would literally go to school, take 17 credits a semester. And then I'd work at the radio station 29 hours a week, which really was like 50 hours a week, but I got paid for 29. Then at one point, one of my internships was at Epic Records in New York City, and I still lived in Philly. I lived at Parktown Place, and I'd walk from Parktown to 30th Street, take the train from 30th Street to Trenton, switch trains and go from Trenton to Penn Station, then hop on the subway and go all the way up to 55th and Madison. 9/11 was my first day. That's another top. I met Michael Jackson and 9/11 within 3.5 months. Yeah. Met Michael Jackson at my internship, and 9/11 was my first day of my internship.
The 9/11 was your first day of your internship.
Yes.
And you were traveling en route when this happened.
Yes, it was the very first day. I'll try to make a very long story short, but basically what happened is that I left Parktown Place, walked to 30th Street, was supposed to take the 640 train, but I was really confused, so I ended up getting on the 740 train, got to Trenton, because you only could take Amtrak from 30th Street to Penn Station, but I don't have rich parents and I wasn't getting paid to do this internship. So I would go and pay, the $29, and which is crazy because I paid to work for free when you think about it. It's insane. Capitalism at its finest. Yeah.
At that time.
I would leave at 6 a.m., get into work at like 9:15, and then I would leave at 5 and get home at like 7:38. It's crazy. But I was like working in New York City. So anyway, I'm on the train from Trenton into Penn Station, and I'm sitting next to this guy, and like I look out the window, and again, I was a very, very, very naive 21-year-old. I had a prepaid cell phone at the time. I didn't even have a real cell phone at the time. And you could see the towers on fire, and this guy leaned over to me and was like, I work on the 86th floor, but I overslept today. And I was like, oh, okay. And then people's cell phones started ringing, people talking about terrorism, and I'm like, what's terrorism? Like, it's so crazy to think about how naive we all were. And in a way blissful though, right?
Yeah.
Like, the level of anxiety was so low. And now it's the opposite, where everybody's so heightened with fear at all times. So I get into Penn Station. We didn't really know what happened at the time. So I didn't want to seem like a bad employee, but I didn't know how to use the subway at this point. So I like hopped in a cab, and luckily we were going uptown where the towers are downtown. And so we're in the cab, and the city literally was like gray because like one of the buildings had already collapsed, and I was in the cab. They had the radio on, and the other building collapsed, and he drove me up to 55th and Madison, and I get in the Sony building, and I go to the 22nd floor, and I'm like, I'm here, I made it. And this guy, Jordan, was one of the assistants, was like, get home as fast as you can. And I'm like, So I literally walked all the way back down to Penn Station, because that was my thought, was like, go to where I know I can get out. And so I went back to Penn Station. And fortunately, this woman, I met with her daughter, and she weirdly enough also worked at Sony. I didn't know her, but she was like, what are you doing, honey? And she was just like, stay with me. And by the grace of God, they opened Penn Station that day for like 3 hours. And so at like 2:00 in the afternoon, they like let trains out, and I'll never forget. So it's weird how your body reacts, because I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I wasn't hungry. We just sat there like, what the hell's happening? Right. There was no way to get in touch with anybody. I mean, the lines for the payphone were blocks and blocks and blocks long.
Wow.
And so I get into Penn Station. It's like cattle is the best way I could describe it. And you go down 2 levels. You go into the first level, and then you go down steps, and I'm on the track, and the doors of the train are open, and they're all packed. And like the very last car, there was like one little opening, and I like jumped in and was able to get out. And I got home that day probably at like 5:30, but it was a miracle that I was able to get out, because people were trapped in the city for days.
Absolutely.
So that was crazy.
What an experience.
Oh my God, I know.
Especially at a young age.
At a very young age. Yeah. And then fast forward, in that November I was just randomly there, and yeah, I met Michael Jackson. So I'll try to make that a very quick story too. But I would run errands for the president at the time. Her name was Polly Anthony, and she had 2 assistants, and her one assistant said to me, "We need you to go find 6 cans of Minute Maid orange soda." And I said, "Okay." And she was like, "Okay, 6 cans of Minute Maid orange soda." And so I go, now this is again, like there's no Google Maps. There's barely an internet. So you're just walking around the streets of New York City, like going into different bodegas and like Dwayne Reed to like find it. I go back, and her name was Samantha. She's like, you don't understand. Like, you have to find 6 cans of Minute Maid orange soda. So I go back out. I have no idea why I had to find these cans. Finally go to this bodega. I find 3 of them. I beg the guy to look in the basement. He finds like 4 more. He brings them up. We take wet paper towel. We're cleaning them off. I bring them back. She's like, thank you so much. That's it. So fast forward like a couple minutes later, I'm in the service elevator bringing boxes of CDs, because that's what CDs. Mm-hmm. And one of the girls, her name was Nina. She was like, you know who's here, right? I'm like, no. She's like, Michael Jackson. I'm like, what? Because he was on Epic Records at the time, and he had a new album. It was when he did a collab with Eve, which is like, shout out to Philly. And so I look down the hall, and there's like a security guard standing there, and literally in that second, Polly walks out of her office, and Michael walks out, and I like ran to the cubicle where I was sitting, and Polly brings him over, and he was like, these are 2 of our assistants. This is Keith, and this is Nicole. And he's like, hello, it's nice to meet you. And he had on black Dickie pants, and he had on almost like a Letterman's jacket, where it's like fleece, and then it's the leather sleeves with the snaps. Yeah. And like Polly was rubbing his back, and he was like, thanks for having me. And it was obviously very quick, but it was so surreal. And no one took pictures then. It was just the story. And luckily, I still am friends with on social media. And this guy, Joel Kleeman, who I see once in a while in the industry, he's like, isn't that crazy that we met Michael Jackson? And I was like, I know. And it's so crazy to think that like we just have this story that we just happened to meet him. And
was the soda for him?
A soda's for him, and he never drank any of it. Yeah. Twizzlers too.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Go figure, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get that diva status sometimes, and it's like, why did I do that? But you don't ask questions why.
You don't. I mean, it's Michael Jackson, so.
It's funny because what you just described is what people see in movies, running around like with a chicken with its head cut off, New York City, searching for something, not even knowing why, but you're being summoned to do so.
There's a really fancy store called Burdorf Goodman, and and people call it Bergdorf's. And I would have to like one time I had to take this like $10,000 worth of china back. I would like meet with personal shoppers. They would like get me black car and I would like go to pick. It was like the Devil Wears Prada.
I was gonna say, you're like Anne Hathaway there running around New York.
Just not as dramatic. It was fun, but just not as dramatic, you know? But yeah, so that was crazy. But then really quick to kind of, so I worked as an intern, and then when I graduated college, I worked as a receptionist from 9 to 5 because you have to like work your way up in radio. Mm-hmm. So I worked at this company called Sparks. I worked 9 to 5 as a receptionist, and then I did promo crew for Q102, and then every weekend, because you have to start on the air at a much smaller market. And fortunately in this area, we do have a little bit of we have the Jersey Shore, and I worked at FM 97 in Lancaster. So every weekend I would drive from I lived in South Philly at the time. So I'd go from Philly to Lancaster, I'd be on the air, and then I drive back. And then sometimes I would fill in nights at B104. So I would work 9 to 5 as a receptionist and then jump on the turnpike and then work 7 to midnight filling in on the week. And then eventually I started doing weekends on Q102. So I would do like a Saturday, let's say from like 2 to 7 in Lancaster. And then I would be on the air from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Sunday nights on Q102, and then work as a receptionist from 9 to 5.
Was B104 still over in East Allentown behind like off Union Boulevard there?
No, it's right across the street from the mall, from the Lehigh Valley Mall.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like behind the Perkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Perkins burned down.
I know.
But where ZZO was.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Because it used to be in this, like, in East Allentown, in like the middle of this, well, in the middle of a neighborhood, really.
Yeah.
And this like old brown
building.
I
think I remember people telling me that. No,
Yeah,
so by the time
crazy.
I was there, it's where it is now.
Okay,
which is
right off
like
the highway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It wasn't that bad. But, you know, when I think back now, I'm like, man, I grinded, but I was so obsessed with being on the radio that I never thought about it as a job. Even when I was a receptionist, I loved it. I was like the bartender at work, right? Like I got to talk for a living. So, but it took a long time. And so in a lot of ways, it does seem like, when is it going to happen for me? When am I going to get there? But like, I really do believe like the grind works. And I also feel very, very, very blessed. And I said this to a friend the other day, and he was like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Most people do not get to work in their passion, in their talent. Like I am, you know, I'm in the 1%, not the billionaire 1%, but I'm in a percent of people that, you know, my talent happens to be my passion and it happens to be my job. Like I'm very blessed in that sense. And it is never lost on me, ever. And so I always want to live in that gratitude that like that worked out the way that it did. And do I want to do more? Yes. And so it's that balance of wanting to do more projects and more fun things and get my hands, you know, I had my high school reunion a couple months ago, and some of our teachers came, and one of my teachers, Mrs. McDonald, who was our English teacher, she was like, when are you having your own talk show? Because I would always say I'm going to do my own talk show and do teacher makeovers. And I was like, I mean, I guess technically I do have my own talk show every afternoon, but like I always wanted to do like Oprah, Ellen, you know, a mix between Ricky Lake and all without the drama. You know, I wanted to like talk about like mental health and equality, but also like have on Eminem and, you know, Harry Styles. So
that's cool though. And you talked about passion. And one thing that people don't realize is like, you know, I've always said, you know, pursue your passion. Yeah. Find out what it is you love and do it. Because there are so many people out there that are miserable.
Yes.
Daily.
All the time.
They get up in the morning and it's like, I got to do this shit all over again.
Yes.
I mean, I'd hate to be that way. I mean, I'm like that some days. I think everybody's like that some days. But for the majority of times, like I want to wake up in the morning and say, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Right.
Not many people have that.
Exactly. I do. And even when I was doing mornings, and I did mornings for almost 8 years, and I still have PTSD from getting up at 4 a.m., but I still loved going to work every day. Even though I hated getting up, I still loved going to work every day. I loved doing the morning show. Right. And so but like the whole waking up so early was horrible. But that was honestly my parents. My dad would say that all the time, like, see what you love to do, figure out a way to get paid for it. Like he was so encouraging. Both my parents were, but like my dad and I just always had a very special relationship, and a lot of daughters and dads don't. And he was just, I always say that like if you had to put together a list of like what makes the best dad, like it was him. But I always think, both my parents did such a good job with that, where they supported me as long as my decisions were positive. Like after I graduated from Drexel, I moved to Dallas, Texas, and worked in radio there for a year, and I hated it. And I ended up coming back, and they supported me and all that kind of stuff, And so I think that helps with the confidence, kind of going back to the confidence discussion, is that having people to support you as long as it's a positive decision, right? And even at one point, I thought I would maybe move to Portland, and my dad was like, you don't want to do that. Like, you don't want to do promotions. You want to be on the air. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I'll support you if you really want this, but like, is that, and I was like, no, I want to be on the air. And so I decided, and my parents obviously I knew that they couldn't like pay my rent, and they couldn't, at that time, I think now people could be 27 when they have health until they're on their parents' health insurance at that point.
Is that what it is now?
I think so.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I had to be a responsible adult. So I was like, well, what kind of job can I work that gives me the flexibility to still pursue my dream? Mm-hmm. And it's so funny. I remember one of my friends from college, I was talking to him on instant messenger when I was a receptionist, and he's like, well, what's your plan B and C? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what if like radio doesn't work out? And I was like, it didn't even cross my mind. I was just like, but it is. Like, it is.
Oh, so you went into it saying, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to budge.
Yeah.
I'm not swaggering. I'm
like,
not going to sway.
Jennifer Lawrence, the actress, said in an interview one time, she's like, I can't explain it, but I just like knew that I was going to be famous. And I kind of just always knew I'd be in entertainment. Like, I can't explain it, but like I would be, a 14-year-old kid in Our Lady of the Valley Catholic school. And I just like knew I was going to be in entertainment. Like, I didn't know what that looked like. And it's actually really funny because we had our class reunion. We wrote letters to ourselves, and my letters were like, they're like, I'm going to be on Broadway. I'm going to be an Academy Award winner. I'm like, wow, I had big, big dreams. And like, who knows? They all could still come true. But I knew even at 17, I knew that I'd be in the industry somehow. So it's not exactly what I said. But the funny thing is there was one part that I talked about, like, how I want to like help people and I want to make people feel good. And I was like, oh, okay. So like some of that really did come true. And it was like so funny. It was like, I'm going to have a mansion in Los Angeles and a house at the beach in Miami, and I'm going to live in a loft in New York City. And I was like, wow, okay, well, I need to make a couple more million before. But I was like, I do live in a center city apartment in Philadelphia. So like in a weird way, it really is.
You're manifesting it
manifesting,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not, having your 3 residences and
right.
And
I can't sing for shit, so I don't know why I thought I'd be on Broadway.
Well, that's all right though. You know what? There's some people on Broadway that can't act for shit, so you're okay.
I was like, I can't sing at all, but I like that I had the confidence to think I did.
But do you sing though? Like nobody's listening when you do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm that person that like I'll be in Target dancing, like if a song comes on. Yeah. Like I don't take myself too seriously. Life's weird and crazy. And, but again, I really do attest that a lot to my parents. I mean, I was very fortunate that like I grew up where like the radio was on, the TV was on. My parents are always singing and dancing and in a good mood. And don't get me wrong, like they would yell at us and like, my brother and I, and like I went to Catholic school for 12 years, but like that love and enjoyment of life was always there.
Were you a Marian Catholic grad?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Go Colts.
Small school.
Were you at Central?
No, I was Whitehall.
Oh, Whitehall.
Whitehall,
okay.
Yeah. I was Whitehall, very naive Whitehall boy. I graduated when I was 17 and, in the old farm country and went to East Stroudsburg. So it's not like I got like much of an education in worldly wise.
Right. Because you went from like farm to farm.
I went from farm to like backwoods.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You kidding? We used to do, for fun on weekends, we used to drive around Nesquehoning and everything just because it was different.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Nesquehoning is like my backyard, which is like so funny that we have that such a small town connection. But I really love where I grew up. I really do. And my whole family still lives there. And so it's fun that it's close enough that I go back all the time. I mean, especially the last couple months with my dad being sick, I was there a lot more. And now I have a niece who's 2 that I'm obsessed with. So I feel very fortunate that I'm and extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, parents. I mean, my parents have tons of friends that we're really close with. So that's really fun. But I also I'm such a city girl, it's like, it's good to go back. But I love also being in the city, you know.
Never forget where you came from.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really important to do that, keep your values in that aspect. And, my condolences on your father.
Thank you.
I know how difficult that is because, 5 years ago, I lost my father in a quick time frame.
Yeah.
Very rapid. And I know sometimes that can take a lot out of you.
Yeah.
And can really quell that fire that's burning.
Well, yeah, the last time that we were together, when you came to my live broadcast with Natalie, and he had just been moved to another hospital because he had it's really crazy now that I think about it, because that was the beginning of July, and that's when kind of the downside. I mean, to recap for the listeners really quick, my dad had Parkinson's when he was 29 years, and he was such a warrior. But
29 years?
29 years, almost 30, yeah. But to make a very long story short, which it's hard for me to do sometimes, but he fell and he was okay, but then he had a random seizure that we still have no idea why he had, and then he was doing great, was in St. Luke's in Bethlehem, then went to Good Shepherd in Allentown, was in acute rehab, but then got a UTI, and then it turned into acute pneumonia or aspirated pneumonia. And his poor body, he's such a fighter, and he really tried to fight. And talking about hope, I really still did have the hope. I was that eldest daughter where I turned into crazy project manager and talking to all the doctors and his neurologist at Penn, and because he did so much for me, so it wasn't even a question, right? Mm-hmm. And his body just couldn't fight anymore. So it's an interesting journey, grief, because I'm obviously very in touch with mental health, and I read about it, and and I even said to my therapist, I just want to make sure I'm ahead of it. And she's like, and I'm like, no, not ahead of it. I'm not going to be cured from it. I just want to make sure I'm grieving in the right way. You know what I mean? I just wanted to make sure I'm processing it. And she's like, yes, you're if you weren't sleeping or if you weren't eating, but it's weird. When you know yourself, I found myself being irritable, and I was like, why am I I'm not an irritable person. I was like, oh, it's grief, or it is weird how it just hits you out of nowhere, and you're just like, oh my God. Or you just go about your daily life, and then you're like, wait, my dad's not here. It's just so weird still. So it's been an interesting couple months, especially because obviously Parkinson's is a progressive disease, so it progresses. But him being sick for these last 3 months, and this all kind of happened so weird. And I keep telling everybody, it's still just weird. It's just weird what happened. We don't really know why. Another thing too. So, but yeah. But so much of who I am is because of my parents, and I want to convey just how Natalie and I do our podcast together, Lipstick League, and there's a lot of guys that listen, and I was like, being a good father especially is so important, and it matters, and so it's something that I use my platform to convey. Yeah. Well,
I'm sure he's more than proud of
yeah.
you.
And he told me that all the time too. And that was the joke where I always said, people who are always like, oh my God, she loves compliments. I'm like, well, I'm a Leo, and my dad always complimented me.
Who doesn't love compliments? Yeah, exactly. Let's face it.
Okay, so exactly.
You know what? If somebody's like, oh, no, stop. When people will be like, oh, Britt, I'm always like, oh, stop. But in essence, I'm like, tell me
yeah, it's
more.
Like this. It's
tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I could give any type of advice on grief, which I'm not an expert on it, but I've been doing it for 5 years with my father, and it's just give yourself time, and it may never be over.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that means you have feelings, and
right.
Feelings are so valid.
They're so valid and important to feel.
So let's talk about Lipstick League. You and Natalie, Natalie Eganoff, who is, a close friend with both of ours. And she also is a local media personality. And you and her do this podcast, and you two couldn't be from the most different backgrounds of media.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And what is the Lipstick League really about?
So it's so funny because I am a huge sports fan because of my dad, as is she, which is this weird common denominator. But I would listen to her when she was on the Mike Missinelli show because I did mornings and then I did middays. So they would be on the air when I would be driving home, and I just loved it. And this is before I even knew Mike or Ty or Natalie personally. And I was just like, as a listener who was a fan, and then coming from a radio professional, I'm like, this is such a great show. Like, they're so good together. They had such great chemistry.
Right.
And so then it was really weird because I was working at iHeart at the time, and then all of a sudden I go to Beasley, and now we're coworkers. So we just like hit it off instantly. The three of us.
You were in the
did.
same building then,
We were in the same building, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how, like, we were friends via social media, and like we would see each other once in a while at like different media events and stuff. But like we really did become friends because we were coworkers, and we were on the air at this. I was on the air from 3 to 7 at the time. They were on 2 to 6. So we were basically on at the same time. But sometimes I'd get there a little bit early, and I would, see them and so we just hit it off, and we were just talking about how like there's this void in mainstream sports where there's not enough of a female twist. Like there's a lot of sports that talk about female sports, and which is so vitally important to talk and to highlight female athletes. But we wanted to talk about mainstream sports with a female twist. Mm-hmm. It's, not talk about in 1972, the wide receiver with the most statistics. That wasn't going to be our thing. We wanted to talk about
just doing a wide world of sports right there.
Yeah, exactly. Like we wanted to talk about why can't Ben Simmons shoot, and what happened to Carson Wentz. Why did he absolutely digress? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like what happened? Like what's the mental part of it, and then to tie in pop culture. And it was so funny when we recorded an episode last week and we talked about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and we're like, did we manifest them? Because that's what our podcast is. It's where pop culture and sports come to play. Like that's what we do. We talk about sports and pop culture and like how to marry the two. And so we talk a lot about our interpretation of what's going on. Like Aaron Rodgers, like what's the deal with Aaron Rodgers? Like why is he talking about the vaccine still? And like why is what is the deal? Why doesn't he talk to his family? Like that's the kind of stuff, because I think that the mental aspect of the game, it doesn't matter how talented you are. Mm-hmm. If there's something that's not clicking, and if people watch Ted Lasso, I mean they touch on that so well. Right. The mental aspect of it. I actually just finished the David Beckham documentary on Netflix, which is phenomenal. And that is so amazing from the mental part of it, and just what he went through at such a young age. And again, I don't think I sure as hell didn't realize. I knew who he was, but we weren't really, in 1997, like we weren't getting coverage of what was happening with UK soccer.
Right.
But I mean, without giving too much away, like he was literally tortured by the entire country. And even now at almost 50, like him realizing he never really dealt with the trauma. So that is, and Natalie and I just clicked with that. And so it's been really fun when we bring up, and we don't just talk about Philly stuff. We talk about but with mainstream sports, right? Like we talk about what's going on with James Harden. We talk about, the fact that Drew Holiday.
What is going on with James Harden?
I don't know. But that's a mental part of the game, right? Where he thinks that he's James Harden for 10 years ago and he's not.
No, he is definitely not.
So it's like, what's going on mentally, right? Or you have somebody like Jimmy Butler, where when we opened this podcast, where I said like, I want to know about your relationship with your mother, right? But like James Harden is that person that's like, I want this and I deserve this. And then you have Jimmy Butler, if you know his story, where his parents basically abandoned him and he kind of like raised himself. Mm-hmm. It's not surprising that he has that fire in him to win, because he's like, I've always done it myself. And that's how he is. He basically carries these teams on his back. It's very interesting from a psychological perspective. And so that's kind of what the Lipstick League is. And we wanted to create a space that's safe and that is encouraging and that is inclusive, and that we talk that's positive. I mean, obviously we bullshit and like we call people out, but I mean, there's some really angry people, especially men. I'm just going to say it. And we wanted to kind of create an opposite of that, to just be like, and listen, we've got annihilated. I mean,
I was going to ask you, how many men have you guys pissed off? You ladies pissed off?
I mean, so many, because I have always been really outspoken about how I think that Philadelphia fans are just terrible and how it affects the players' mental state. I'm like, these are professional athletes. They are literally the best at what they do. Do you think they want to suck? Like, do you really think that they want to be terrible? Like, remember the Super Bowl year where they or the year after the Super Bowl, how awful they were to Nelson Aguilar? And it's like, do you think he wants to suck? not being awful to a player is not going to all of a sudden make them better. Like, they already know they suck. And then lo and behold, what happened with Trey Turner? Do you know what with the standing ovation? Do you know about the story? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, Trey Turner is struggling the most he's ever struggled in his entire career. And they come up with this idea to give him a standing ovation and like give him positive reinforcement. And it fucking worked.
Absolutely.
And it changed the entire trajectory of the entire Philly season. And I was like, you know what? I told you so.
Positive reinforcement.
From a science perspective, I mean, positive energy produces positive energy.
I mean,
just from physics.
It's walking into a room and you can detect if the energy is going to be sucking the life out of you or putting the life into you.
Yes.
And it conveys that. But Trey Turner, he looks so damn young.
Oh my God! So he looks like he's a high school history teacher.
He every time I see him,
it's
I'm
crazy.
like, are you old enough to
I
be
know,
out there?
I know, I know. It's so funny because he doesn't look like he should be this like rock star, but he's like one of the best baseball players in the league.
Absolutely.
And so I find it. We kind of talked about being authentic from the jump of this podcast, right? And I was like, sometimes I like call people out on their bullshit. And like, I just always thought that the whole negative stance of Philly, and it stemmed from people being miserable, right? That blue collar, that like, I'm working so hard, my back hurts. Well, you shouldn't have to work. Like, that's all my thing is like, America has this whole thing where it's like, we need to work hard and we need to be miserable and we need to pull up our bootstraps and our backs need to hurt and our hands need to bleed. And I'm always like, why? Like, why do we have to continue that narrative? Like, why can't life be softer? Yeah. Why can't you feel more loved? Why can't work be easier? Why it doesn't have to be so hard? Like, why don't we just change the narrative? Right? And so I feel like we could maybe start with Philly sports. Like, so
good luck with that.
Not that I ever want to talk about her because I think she's awful, but Candace Owens, who's a political commentator, she went to a school and a trans girl was really mad that she was there. And Candace's response to her was like, life's hard, get a helmet. And people were like praising Candace. And that made me think, but like, why does life have to be hard? Like, why? Why is this the narrative? Like, it shouldn't be. You should feel loved and comforted and yeah, life's going to throw curveballs at you and there's going to be times that it's hard, but that shouldn't be the baseline. And so like, that's kind of how I felt about like sports here is that like, we always think like no one likes us, we don't care, and like we're the underdogs. And it's like, why can't we just change it? Like, why can't we be the dominant force in sports?
Because we're Philly. I really think that we like people in Philly are just trying to uphold the reputation that was bestowed upon them.
Right, but we can change it. You can change your reputation.
Let's see if we could do that. That would be great. I don't know how.
I mean, the Trey Turner thing, I think, is such a huge moment because it just goes to show that like being positive does work. And multiple players have said it didn't just change Trey. It changed the entire essence of the team when that happened. Because again, these players, I don't think people realize that like they're the best of the best. I mean, when you look at like NFL quarterbacks, there's only 32 of them. And even the third string quarterbacks like won multiple state titles from where they're from. I mean, they were the best at their college. Like, do you think they want to suck? Do you think they want to be third string? They want to be the star quarterback. They're just not good enough.
Right.
That doesn't mean they want to suck. So like when you're telling a player you suck, like he knows.
It's really funny you say because I'm one of those persons like you're yelling at them that they suck, but you're sitting there and they're playing.
Yeah.
So who sucks?
Yeah.
Who really sucks? And I get it. I understand fans have that, you know.
And it does come down to the whole. One of my favorite quotes of all time is the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
I don't know who.
But I do like that.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite quotes is, I'm beyond your peripheral vision, so you might want to turn your head. It's another one that I love.
Oh, that's cool.
But the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And that is the ultimate Philly sports fan. They are so mean because they want it so bad. But they need to get rid of the meanness. You can be frustrated. If somebody's a jerk, you can be frustrated. You can be like, you suck. But like, I don't know. I'm also believe in karma. And when you're like mean, then
it'll come back to bite you.
Yeah.
It'll definitely come back to bite you.
Yeah.
And speaking of being mean, I mean, let's face it, you're for the last 13 years of your life, you've been in the public eye.
Yeah.
You have been, you're on the radio, you do public engagements, you get out there, you actually host one of the largest country festivals in the country.
Yeah.
Not everybody is nice to public figures, are they?
I've been very fortunate that I've had, I would say, 98% positive interactions with people.
Love it. That's sick.
Yeah. And let me tell you this really quick. I'll tell you this quick story because as I can say, I could talk for a while. But here's a perfect example. So Jason Aldean, obviously a massive country singer, came out with that song, Try That in a Small Town, very controversial. I do not hide the fact that I'm very liberal. And we played it on the radio station, and I don't have any say what gets played. That's to try to explain the science behind radio. To make a very long story short, it's based off the Billboard charts. It's based off of the record labels in Nashville. Okay, he's a mega artist. We played the song, and this guy calls. He's like, Nicole, hey, it's Bob. I just want to say thanks so much for playing it. And I'm like, ooh, don't thank me, because if it's up to me, I probably wouldn't play it. And Bob and I couldn't have been more different, right? Bob's in his mid to late 50s, a blue collar working class guy, obviously very conservative. And Bob and I had this awesome conversation, and it was wonderful. And I was like, this is kind of what we have to do. It's like we have to kind of try to have the conversation. And, when I said to him, I was like, listen, I said, if anybody's going to speak about this topic, because I grew up in the smallest town in America where it's so small that there's no traffic lights and everybody's white. And I went to Catholic school my whole life. And then I also live in Center City, Philadelphia, where like during the 2020 riots, literally the sneaker store next to my house was looted. And, like I've lived both experiences. So I do feel I could talk about it. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. And we ended up having this really great conversation. So to answer your question about people being nice to public figures, of course, like on social media, especially Twitter, there's been some very nasty people. A lot of times it's men. And a lot of times what happens if they don't agree with my sports take, then they come at me about something physical, which is just so ridiculous. And so just goes to show just how non-emotionally intelligent a lot of people are. But when it's face to face and human to human, or even over the phone, it's always usually a more pleasant interaction. A lot of times people come at me in a aggressive way, and then you could talk about it, right? And you can just say like, this is why I feel the way I feel. And some people just naturally have that aggressiveness in them. And then you have to just be like, hey, like, we're not going to agree. So you just have to let it go. Right. But there was a woman yesterday, because I talked about what's going on in the Middle East on my show, and she's a Catholic. She's Palestinian Catholic. And again, unbeknownst to me, I didn't even realize that was a thing, which I was like, damn, there's so much more education that I need to do. And she was just like, I wish that you would have brought that up. And I just said, listen, I said, I am never want to make anybody feel unincluded. I said, what's happening to Israel right now, it's really hard. But obviously, like, if you follow me, that for me, it's about peace. And it's about, I am not I always say, like, I'm a lover, not a fighter, and she's like, I totally get it. So I think it's important just to like say, even if you offend somebody, just like, I'm really sorry. This is why I said this. And you're never going to please everybody. So if I do make somebody upset, I always try to at least say, this is why I said what I said, or like, I always want to make you feel better. So and it's not in a people pleasing way. I don't want to think that like you need to be a people pleaser, but I do think it's important to educate yourself, and that times change, things move forward. I mean, and a lot of people have a really hard time with that. Like, oh, you can't say this word anymore. No, because like if somebody's saying they're offended, who are you to tell them not to be offended? That's what I don't get either, where people are like, oh, everybody's so soft.
Stop being so sensitive. Yeah,
and it's like, it's not sensitive. It's like, why do you think it's okay to say that? You're not that person. You don't know what it's like to be black or Hispanic or Jewish or Muslim or gay. Like, you're a white dude.
Right.
I'm a white woman, right? So it's like, in a lot of ways, I think it's important to say, I have no idea what it's like to be you. Like, share your experience with me so I can help understand.
And that's it, becoming an ally.
Yeah.
And not many of us do that anymore. People think they know somebody.
Yes.
They think they know what they're going through. And we don't. We really don't, unless it's us that's personally going through it. But to become an ally, and I think not many people want to learn that awareness.
Yeah.
Not many people want to break the stigma or shake the stigma. They
Or
want to continue with the stigma.
Yeah, and I think too, people, it really goes back to self-confidence, saying, I don't know. So during everything that's been going on the past couple of days with the Middle East, I'm like, I really don't know as much as I probably should know. So I'm trying my best to educate myself in the best way possible. But what I can say is that I'm praying for peace. I'm praying for these innocent victims. Like, that's the best that I could say at this point, because it's a lot to learn. And I think that there's been a lot of those situations where I'm like, I don't know enough about this topic, so I'm going to try to learn the best I could. It's also hard because we do live in a space where we want everybody to comment on everything, but not everybody knows everything. But then on the flip side, we do live in an influencer world, right? So like, what people with influence say matters. So it's a very fine line to try to do the right thing, to speak on something, but be educated enough to speak on it, you know, and then be silent. Because a lot of times, like, your silence says more than your speech. So it's tough. And I think it's okay to say that it's tough. It's okay to say, I want to say the right thing. And that's kind of how I lead, where I say, like, I just want to lead with love, and I want to lead for people to be accepted. And so much of this is like governments fighting. It's not about people. That's another, institutions are not necessarily people. So that's hard too when you really break it down, because it's like there's so many people that are affected by something that's an institution, and it's hard to separate that.
Absolutely. And you know, sometimes you look at it and you forget, you take away that humanization of somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and you sort of just go after it because you're going after your own personal, you know, ideas.
100%. I mean, and that even comes, you know, we're in a time with women too, where, you know, internalized misogyny is real. And when you think about how, I mean, thank God for the Barbie movie, right? But it's so funny because people are like, the Barbie movie is amazing. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Like, duh, this is real. Like, duh, this is happening. Like, but I also know that I'm somebody that like lives in that very world of understanding. Like, when you think about the fact that for centuries women have been told to hate ourselves, and then no wonder why we're in competition with other women, and we're slowly peeling back the layers. But it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot.
It's overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's okay to be like, I just want to binge watch Red, White, and Royal Blue again. Did you watch it?
I did not.
You didn't watch Red, White, and Royal Blue yet?
No.
Oh my God, it's my favorite rom-com. You have to watch it.
I'm going to have to watch it now.
Yeah.
Now that you said something.
It's my, well, you know how sometimes you have like comfort shows. And so it came out in August. I read the book. The book's really, really good. And I was obsessed. And Amazon Prime has the movie, and it's just like silly and cute and a rom-com. And I just like, it's adorable. So it's like, whenever I'm just like, this is too overwhelming, I'm like, I'm just going to watch Red, White, and Royal Blue again.
It's going to be a rainy weekend. I'll put it on, let you know what I think of it for sure. You like to travel.
I do.
You've traveled a lot. I like to live vicariously through your travels when I see you post.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite places you've ever been to?
Iceland. Yeah.
I've been there twice.
You've been there twice?
In the same year.
What?
June for the summer solstice.
Okay.
And then October for the winter solstice.
Wow.
I celebrated my first year of recovery in Iceland.
Wow.
And I did it by myself.
Yeah.
But Iceland was great.
Oh my God.
Loved
it. That's always, listen, I was just in Italy for 2 weeks. Italy was absolutely magical.
That's right. You're on the Amalfi Coast and everything.
Yeah, it was so cool. And, you know, I've been very fortunate. I haven't been a ton of places, but I've been, you know, London, and I've been to France, and been all over the Caribbean, been to a lot of the different states, but Iceland was just mad. I mean, you've been there twice, so you get it. Like, it just like the whole time I was there, I was like, I know that there's gnomes running around here. You know what I mean?
They had
like,
the little homes along the road, beside the road, and everything, and the little lighthouses.
It's just, it just feels like almost like a movie set, but it's real. And I think it did ruin every waterfall though, because like I had been to I went to the really famous waterfalls in Oregon after that, and I was like, oh, and that Now, I have never been to Niagara Falls, which is weird because it's not that far from here. So that probably will mirror Iceland.
The waterfalls in Iceland.
Yeah.
And then you can walk inside behind
Oh my God,
them and just travel. It's awesome. What an experience.
It's the best.
Yeah.
And we went over Labor Day like 5 years ago. So I think I would like to go back in the winter, just to kind of get more of like the snow. But we did miss the puffins because the puffins are there in like July and August. Yeah. So maybe I would go, I don't know, but it's magical. And that's the first place. Don't get me wrong. Venice was amazing. Rome was amazing. Venice, it's the same thing. Like the whole time I was like, oh my God, it's like Las Vegas. Where's Auntie Anne's? I feel like I'm at the Venetian. There's like a really funny TikTok where it's like, wow, Italy built a whole country off of Epcot. Crazy. But yeah. And so I definitely want to go back to France. I want to Greece. I want to do Spain. Like I want to do it all, So until I'm, an independently wealthy billionaire that can just have my own private jet and go wherever I want.
That would be nice. Mm-hmm. And when you do, let me know because I'll go right there with you.
Yay.
Iceland, if you do go back and you go back in the wintertime, you are going to be experiencing mostly darkness.
Right.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
Because, I was getting out of bed and like 9 a.m, it was still dark.
Well, yeah, because when we went over Labor Day, it was light till 10 o'clock at night.
And when I was there in June, it was light all the time.
Oh.
There was a small sliver of darkness that came in, and it was weird. It was like 2 a.m, and it was still bright out. It's just
but people don't realize, too, that it's only like a 4.5 hour flight from here.
Yeah, it's great. And it's an easy flight, and it's cool. I flew back then when it was WOW Airlines.
Yeah.
That big purple vessel that looked like a Pepto-Bismol vessel. Yeah.
It did look.
It did.
And then that shut down.
It did.
Yeah.
Which is wild. But we actually, each time I traveled to Baltimore, but Iceland was cool.
Yeah.
You want to go somewhere cool, go to Bali.
Look at you're talking about travel. You've been to Bali?
Yeah.
How many times?
Just once. That's all. Are you kidding? That flight's 24 hours.
No.
But I was there that same year as Iceland.
What?
Yeah, I was just crazy. I was just like, I'm doing it all.
How long were you there?
I was there 14 days. I got a one-way ticket.
No way.
I got a one-way ticket, and I got there, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So once I got there, and all of a sudden I was like, this is great. And then I decided when I wanted to leave, and just got a ticket and came home.
And
great.
So what did you do?
I did nothing. I did a lot of exploring the villages, exploring the island itself of Bali. I walked a ton. Slept on the beach, did nothing, ate, spent like $12 a day on food.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Everybody's
so awesome.
Yeah.
So if you like to travel and you can take that flight, 24-hour flight, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, like Australia is obviously on the list,
right.
And so I don't know. It's you have to like. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to travel.
That's true. It does.
But I think my friends and I really want to do Switzerland. So I think we're going to try to do Switzerland and France next year. So we'll see.
And you go with your friends. You go with the group.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really fortunate that I have like a really great. I'm fortunate. I have a lot of kind of how we started the podcast about being authentic. Like my friends are just the best. They're like family. And even going through everything that happened with my dad, like so much of the sadness was grief from losing dad, but it was also like emotional from how much love I felt from my family, my other family and friends, And so, yeah, my friends mean the world to me. And we're really fortunate that there's, a really close group of us. And I have a ton of friends, but there's like the travel group.
That's awesome.
And and so we were in Turks and Caicos together, and we did this amazing hike we hiked the wave in Utah, which was incredible, where you have to like win a pass to go.
Yeah, you have to like in the morning know if you're going to the lottery.
Well, we actually, my friend Diana did it. She was one of the ones that actually like did it 6 months in advance, and then they it was like the online lottery. Yeah, so that was amazing, and so that is the kind of group that we've been traveling with. So yeah,
good for you.
Hopefully we'll do.
I like to travel solo. I can't go with anybody.
That's great too.
And then people are always like, oh, well, don't you get bored? Well, no, because I could do what I want then.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's lonely, but it's also, I just, I traveled with friends and I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Just can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to eat where they want to eat. I don't want to go where they want to go. I don't,
But I think it's important to know yourself, right? Yeah. And that's it too. Like it's okay if you want to do stuff by yourself. It's funny because I'm going on a work trip to Orlando, and one of my coworkers come and she's like, okay, like, what flights do you want to book? And I said, like, I'm used to kind of just, especially when I travel in the States, radio has allowed me to have a lot of really good friends in different places. So like I'll fly to LA to see a couple of my friends. I'll go to Boston to see other. So especially in the States, like I travel by myself all the time. So I was just like, oh, wait, you want us to book? I'm like, okay, yeah, we can fly together to Orlando. But it's funny because sometimes I like doing stuff by myself too. Like I'm such an extrovert, but there's nothing I love more than like laying on the couch watching TV.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite pastimes.
It's the best.
You know,
yeah.
It's one of those things up there. You know, I got to tell you, like some of the things that draw me to you have been your infectious personality and your contagious positivity. I know I told you this story briefly before, and I'm going to share it, you know, prior to closing out here today that, you know, I've been in recovery for the last almost 8 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, you know, during my time, I was suffering. There were some times, and there weren't many people that I like to go around. And at the time, I was waitering.
Yeah.
And I was waitering at a restaurant that you came into a lot.
Yeah.
And you came in a lot during the afternoons. And I was going through an active addiction point in my life where talking to people was a struggle to begin with.
Yeah.
But you always had that positive energy that you exuded. This was 2011, mind you now.
It's a long
that
time.
you exuded, and that you just treated me, even though you were Nick the web chick. And on Q102, you were very real and genuine. And getting to know you over these years, it reminds me of that time meeting you then and knowing that you are true to who you are, Nicole.
Well, that's very sweet. You're going to make me tear
No,
but
it's
I
so
think
true.
it's important, like, to me, somebody's job should never define who they are, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter. Now, listen, there are literal brain surgeons that it's so funny because my dad's neurologist. A couple times I'd be talking to her on there, like, hold on, I have to do like a break about Thomas Rhett tickets. She's like, oh my God, that's so cool. I'm like, you're literally a neurologist, right? So there are people that like literally, you know, save people's lives and stuff, but your job doesn't define who you are as a human being, right? And who knows what people are going, like you said, like what you were going through at that time. And people have to do things because that's what they're doing. And there could be somebody who is in a space that you think that they have all their shit together and they're actually a mess. And then there's somebody else that's like, you know, there's a lot of people that I know that like literally grinded and worked the corporate ladder. And they were like, you know what? I just like want to work at a coffee shop for a minute, you know? And that shit, in fact, really fast story, but like one of our family friends, their daughter, she literally worked on all the Jack Ryans, right? All the huge, I mean, it was all over the world. And she was like, I'm done. And she went to Temple and she missed Philly and she moved back and she's working at a coffee shop and she's just like, I need to just chill. Right. And so no one, if they met her at the coffee shop, they're like, oh, who's this working? You know, like judging. And she literally had this mega job at one of the biggest shows on Amazon. Right. So I just genuinely like people, and I think being a good human goes a long way. And I really attest that. Like I said, I attest it to my parents, my family. It's just how I was raised, and it's just who I am in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I like to make people feel. I always think about that. I'm like, when somebody's a jerk, I'm like, why do you want to be a jerk? But they probably feel like shit inside, right?
Absolutely.
And they don't know how to make other people feel better.
Being a jerk is a defense mechanism.
Yes,
for sure.
exactly.
It's funny, as you're sitting here, I heard Olympia Dukakis' voice in Steel Magnolia saying, your parents raised you right, you know, because they have, you know.
They're the best. And it's actually funny though, because like one of the first times I was with my therapist and I was like, I have the best parents. She's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Like, no parents are the best, no kids are the best. Everybody's trying to do the best. And I remember that because you never want to set somebody up for failure, right? But like, I do really, really believe that, like, I don't know how I got so lucky with great parents, but I really did. And so I feel like I've been blessed. So it's like, I kind of want to pay it forward in that sense, you know? Plus, I think from a biological perspective or like a science perspective, I do think a lot of who we are is genetically who we are, right? Like some people are just introverts. Some people are just whatever, however they're set up. But I just naturally am an extrovert. I naturally like people. And so I just feel like I'm blessed with this disposition. Like there's some people that are really good at math and they could like figure out the black hole. Like I'm good at making people feel good about themselves. So like I'm going to make people feel good about themselves. You know what I mean? Like everybody has their strengths. And I think not enough people, I started doing this thing on the air called Feel Good Friday, right? Because I noticed that what I would do is I would ask people like, what's the best thing that happened to you today? And they would be like, oh, nothing. I'm like, yes, there is. Like, there's always a slice of joy. What's the joy? And so every Friday, when people call the radio station, I say, what's the best thing that happened to you today? And they're like, well, and I'm like, it could be a meal. It could be a great cup of coffee. It could be a conversation. And people are like, oh, well, actually, like, my boss told me that, like, I did a good job, or like, oh, I got a new puppy. And it's like, it makes people think about what the slice of joy is,
I love that slice of joy.
Yeah. And I think that, like, no matter what's going on in your life, and it was really apparent when the Friday they came back after my dad had passed, because I said, if you're listening and and I shared the journey, you're probably thinking, well, like, what's the best thing that happened to her this week? Like, she lost her dad. I was like, but you know what? Like, the love I felt and the support I felt from my family is joy. And the Eagles are playing this weekend, and that's right. So it's like, even in when you're having a really hard time, there has to be something that your hair looks really good today, or, oh, I put on, my favorite t-shirt, like whatever that like little thing is. So that's the kind of stuff that I just like to exude to people, right? Because there's other people that are amazing artists, or they are great scientists, or they're great business people. I just happen to I want people to smile.
You deal in positivity. You're a positivity dealer.
I need to become a millionaire, but figure it out.
We'll figure it out some way.
And it was so funny, because I was talking to my coworker the other day about I got to go into a couple years ago, one of the my old coworker got tickets to a Eagles game in the President's Club. Her boss is in the right, which is like, there's a separate entrance. Mm-hmm. They like open the car door for you. They give you like filet mignon, and I'm like, I would be such a good rich person. I would never take this for granted. I would like start a foundation. Because I do think that there's like terrible people who are rich. I'm like, do you know how much you could help people?
Mm-hmm. You're right, though.
All the billionaires in the world, I'm like, what are you doing? Buying more yachts? How are you not like trying to save the education system?
Well, that's why they're still billionaires. They're not spending their money on that.
Yeah. So that's what's really hard for me too, where it's like, that's why I have to like binge watch Red, White, and Royal Blue, because sometimes like you think about humanity, and you're like, how do I save it?
Oh, because we're in trouble. We're screwed a little bit.
I'm just gonna rewatch the Eagles Super Bowl from 2018.
Give us some hope.
Yeah.
This year. Holy shit.
It's so fun. It's just like, show. Sometimes it just gets too much, and you have to like, okay, I'm just going to like, binge watch Sweet Home Alabama again.
So Nicole, if people want to follow you on social media, on Instagram, you are?
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, it's all Nicole is Nick.
Nicole is Nick.
So
Nicole
is Nik. Nicole is Nick.
And you branded yourself across all platforms.
I did.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah. And Threads, even though no one's using that anymore right now. But Threads is like the Instagram version of Twitter, because Twitter's been having a meltdown. Talk about like a millionaire, Elon's a billionaire who like isn't doing anything good. But anyway, people are still on Twitter, obviously, and I still tweet. Actually, it's weird you brought that up about somebody tweeted me when you said about people being mean, and they're like, you've talked about Black Lives Matter and you've talked about equality, but you haven't said anything about what's going on in the Middle East. It was some no-name account. And I was like, if you follow me on the other platforms, I've talked about it for the last couple days. And then they were like silent, because like, I guess they only follow me on Twitter. And
just shut them up, and you told them.
And I honestly like really don't tweet. No one really goes on Twitter that much anymore. Like, you kind of see what's going on with sports and stuff. But so there's a perfect example. I kind of forgot about that. People call me out on stuff, but
Twitter nonetheless, because they hide behind the keyboard.
100%. It's never a photo. It's a fake name.
Right.
It's it's great. Like total
and a week
burn.
From now, it's going to be like user one other note does not exist.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and you're like, okay.
But you know what? That means that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
It's when they stop talking about you, got to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I love this. You have your attitude, your drive, your love of family, your love of Philly, your love of yourself. And that's something that not many people have today, is a love for themselves.
It's important.
So they could take that cue from you.
Thank you. It is really important. I think for a long time, especially women, we're always told like, you can't love yourself because you're cocky. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're too cocky. It's like, no. self-confidence is important, like loving and knowing yourself and knowing your flaws, knowing things that, sometimes I think I always want to be right, or, sometimes like knowing your faults is important, right?
Embrace them.
And embrace them and just be like, I'm not good at a couple things, and that's okay. It's okay that you're not good at everything, but don't focus on what you're not good at. Focus on what you are good at. Focus on what makes you happy. Focus on things that it's the whole thing of, and I do this a lot with women where I'll say, name 5 things you don't like about yourself. And they'll be like, I hate my stomach. I hate my thighs. I hate my arms. And then I'll say, name 5 things you like about yourself. Oh, I'm a good mom. I'm a good friend. And they don't even realize what they're doing, how they hate everything physical. But then what they do like about themselves isn't even them. It's how they are to other people. Mm-hmm. And then I'll say, stop it. Let's try this again. Name 5 things you like about yourself physically. And it's almost impossible for people to say.
You may just be the next Dr. Laura. But better, that's for sure.
I'm trying. Starting with this podcast.
I love it.
This is so fun. Thank you so much.
And the Lipstick League with Natalie Eganoff. You can find that on
Apple and Spotify.
Yep. And it is fun. They have a good time.
Yeah,
the two of you have a great personality together. It's like meshes very well.
It is. It's really weird how well we do mesh together, because I'm more of like the irreverent, silly one, and outspoken, and Natalie's more of the cerebral one, and it just works. You know what I mean? Like it really does. It's like we're very fortunate that we have that really good balance.
And it's nice because I love to see women doing something that men say can't be done.
Yeah,
and that's awesome. That's amazing. And you are on 92.5 WXTU Monday through Friday from
2 to 7.
2 to 7.
Yes.
You can find Nicole on there. Make sure you are following her. Make sure you're listening to her. And make sure if you want to reach out and you want to get a dose of positivity, you call her when she's at the station.
Absolutely. Call me, DM me. Always happy to chit chat.
I love it.
Love you. Thank you,
so
Britt.
much, Nicole. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Your attitude. I'm so stoked.
Oh,
and everybody else out there, remember, follow Nicole. There is no C pronunciation in her last name. It is not Michalik. It is Mahalik. And everybody, thanks for tuning in today. This is Britt Carpenter on Usala Media with Be a Voice. Remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. Have a great rest of your day.